Hey, my name is Susan Cervantes, and I'm the founding director of Precita Eyes Muralists. I'm an artist and arts educator and muralist, of course. I do community mural art over the past 40 years.
My name is Luz de Verano Cervantes. I am Susan's son, and Luis, who is my father. I have been a part of Precita Eyes Muralists since it was founded in the 70s, and I've been painting murals and studying art with Susan and Luis since I was very young. My dad had a studio in the front of the house near the entrance. My mother had a studio space close to the kitchen. It was a big Victorian Edwardian storefront. It used to be a bakery. It had high ceilings and it had windows with a big communal table in the middle. It was organized chaos. There was always works in progress, materials everywhere, different kinds of projects and ideas on the walls, easels, sketches, 3 or 4 different drawing tables. There were mural painters, but they weren't necessarily organized into the group yet. I remember our first art classes were at the Precita Valley Community Center. There was a space there that they were using, and they had the panels that Luis built against one wall, and they had a studio workshop there to design a mural. And I can't remember when that was. That was, 70s. What mural was that? The Masks of God, maybe? I was 10 years old. And that was the beginning of what I consider the beginning of Precita Eyes. Yeah. Many people know you as a mural painter. I remember growing up that there was a time before mural painting when Susan was more of a studio painter, painting a lot of oil paint, and then all of a sudden there was a transition in your life from studio painting to mural painting. Do you want to talk about how that happened?
Well, thank you, Luz, for bringing that up, because not a lot of people don't know about my personal work. Before I started getting involved with the mural movement here in San Francisco Mission District, I was a dedicated painter for over 12 years, painting in oils, as you say. But at the beginning of my painting career, I was doing more figurative things, but everything was from my imagination. And then it became a point where I couldn't finish a painting, which was kind of odd, because I used to paint a painting once a day, do a whole painting in one day. Then all of a sudden I just couldn't do that. I thought, well, what am I going to do? So I thought, well, what I could do is just start from the center of the canvas, start from the center of myself, and just kind of work out from there, and just kind of accept whatever came up into my mind. And it was really kind of like a rebirth, because at the same time that occurred, I was starting to get involved with the reefer-smokin, who were doing murals in the neighborhood, and I thought it was really great to see women doing monumental painting.
Luis was experimenting with the acrylic paints, but you started painting murals with acrylic paints. How did that happen?
Luis and I always shared a studio with each other, and he was painting with oils when I first met him, but he found out about these acrylic paints that were innovated in Mexico, and they happened to be available from a little store here in the Mission District. The original formulas from Jose Gutierrez in Mexico. Jose Gutierrez is considered the original innovator of the acrylic formula. He was hired by one of the great Mexican muralists to develop paints for murals. So Luis was painting with acrylic, and I looked at it and I saw it and I said, oh, this is terrible stuff. I'm still an oil painter. I'll always be an oil painter, But when I got involved with the mujeres, and we were painting the Paco's Tacos mural, which was the first one I did with them, I noticed that they were using like house paint or something weird. And I said, do you guys know about Polytech? And they said, no, we don't know anything about Polytech. I said, well, it's a acrylic paint from Mexico, and there's a guy over on 14th Street that sells it. So why don't we try some of it and see what it's like? And so they started getting it, and they thought, oh, my God, this is so good. And so everybody started using that from then on in the early 70s. It made a big difference for everyone to have this wonderful material to paint with. We had our meetings on Thursday nights for mural painting, and whenever there was a mural, your dad was always there. And of course, he was on the board of directors. He was a co-founder, but he had his own work as well. He was a sculptor and a painter, a wonderful person and artist. He was working full-time as a custom mattress maker at McCroskey Airflex Mattress, and he did that for like 46 years or something. Your dad, he and I designed and planned one mural together, at least. It was a portable mural. It was called Celestial Cycles. And also he designed the Cross of Quetzalcoatl, which is at San Francisco State. Urban Youth Arts class started from around 1985, when we started to see these little throw-ups on the walls, which was tagging to some people, but they had some skill. It's different than the Cholo graffiti. And I thought it was interesting. I said, another form of mural art. And, of course, I was just curious as to who was doing it, and I realized that they were not going to let you know who they were because they were doing it without any permission. But eventually I started to make contact with some of the kids around here who were involved, and I thought, well, what I would like to do is to start a youth arts workshop, a program for them to come, hang out with each other and share their ideas with each other and develop their own ideas in a safe place. Of course, they're all shy of any kind of institution or anything, but they started coming in. I started to get to know a lot of the graffiti community writers. They call themselves writers, and they would come in and do little workshops, little demonstrations, or sharing their black books with the students. Like Zest would come around, or Fury. Youth who were involved in that would start to peek in and see what was going on, and it was all free. It was a free space. It's open space, open studio for anyone to come through. And there was really no instruction. You could just sit around the table and you could draw all the tagging you wanted. We also had gotten grants from the city to do graffiti murals based on the fact that it was considered writing and messaging. Luz and Monty and Swaro all were involved in graffiti art, and we're all very, very good at it. At times, you guys would be coming around to the class as well. But then eventually we started to do our festivals. We had our Mural Awareness Month festivals, which started in the early 1990s. And we used to engage the youth in our festival, but they were still kind of a little bit concerned about being recognized, because at that time kids were being criminalized by having even a marker in their pocket. And so they really didn't want to be that public or that visible, because they get turned in. So we had our first festival at Precita Valley Community Center. We had it inside. And we had a panel discussion with all the best writers in the city. Dream and Spy and Estria and Crayon, all those guys. We had sheets and sheets of butcher paper all over the gym. When kids would come in, there must have been 100 or 200 kids inside, all tagging and sharing each other's books and drawing in each other's books. And it was really, really nice. And then we decided to have it outside. But we made it into a very, very tight little maze. You couldn't see from the outside what was going on the inside. We would provide the spray paint, and you had to register in our Urban Youth Arts class to get a can, because you can't have a can unless you're over 18 years old. So we had people register to get a can of paint, and so to spray whatever they wanted to on the walls that we built. You and Swaro and Monty all participated in that for many years, and you even helped build the walls, and Swaro would do the floor plan. It was amazing. So each year the maze just kind of opened up and got bigger and bigger, so it sort of spread out over the whole park. into individual walls. And we would have at least 200 or 300 young people come and participate. We started to add other activities, great performances, rapping and youth speaks and loco bloco, bands, dancers, activities for little kids, a community painting wall so that people that wanted to paint could paint with a brush and do traditional painting as well as all the other people who were doing spray painting. This has been impactful. It's been more than 23 years now that we've had it. This past year we had it. It was all virtual, a couple of thousand people that tuned in, and it was a 2-day program, which included a lot of the people from other countries, workshops for youth, and all the old school writers from San Francisco and our staff. Because of the pandemic, we're all now tuned in to each other online. Thank goodness for that we have that connection through Zoom, which is amazing, even though I really still am very annoyed with it. But
I could riff off of the youth arts thing a little bit. I remember before the graffiti became a real movement, a youth movement out of New York. San Francisco had its own thing, and the Mission District had its own thing. It was more of a Latino Cholo neighborhood. It was pretty rough. We had the projects, block away. You have the Barrio. We were Barrio Precita. It was Barrio Hampshire and Barrio York. And every 2 blocks, Barrio. Lowrider magazine was real popular. And cruising up and down the streets every weekend with the lowriders. And everybody had to have hairnets and winos. And if you're a young boy in the Mission District, you had to be a cholo. And that was just pretty much the way it was. And I remember them painting in Garfield Park, Susan and some of the other artists from Precita Eyes. And it was like 1980. And it was not exactly a real safe place to be for people from outside the neighborhood. And I remember there was a part of the mural that had been painted on, had been tagged on a bunch of times, and it had this skull painted on there with a hat, and he was smoking like a joint. And they painted it out. And then a couple days later, the guy painted it back onto the mural again. They were making a statement. They were putting their own tag on the mural, so letting them know that they were there. This was their neighborhood. And I guess Susan decided to integrate that image into the mural itself. And it never got tagged after that again. It was one of those things where you have the light bulb goes off in your head, and it's like, we are in somebody's neighborhood. We are from the neighborhood. But it's community mural, so what does that mean to us, and how do we include that?
that particular tag was, you saw it everywhere. It was El Escalito, La Misión. We painted it out because we were going to grid the wall and transfer the design. And he came back, I think, even the next night. And I looked at it and I says, well, it's persistent. I says, let's just leave it up there and then see if it might fit into our design somewhere, somehow. And everybody thought I was crazy. When we laid out all of our design, it happened to fit very snugly under the giant octopus. We had designed a coral reef underneath that with a hidden pyramid. And so it seems to me, well, this all fits together. So let's just leave it there. So we did. Then one day I just almost finished with it, and this tap on my shoulder behind me, and I turn around, and this nice, tall, handsome, young Latino guy. And he says, I just want to tell you that I think that you painted it really well. And I said, what's your name? He says, I'm Jesus, the one that drew the image on the wall. And I says, oh, well, thank you very much, Jesus. Glad to meet you. And so, like you said, he never did another anywhere after that. But that it had an impact on him, and it carried through. He just respected it so much that I respected him and his expression of himself. And about, what has it been, 30 years later, I'm painting the Mexican Museum, and somebody says, hi, Susan, do you remember me? And I look up and I said, yeah, who are you? And he says, I'm Jesus. Remember me from Garfield Park? And I said, oh, yeah, what are you doing here? And he says, I'm working for the Yerba Buena Center for the Arts. And he says, and I'm going to protect this mural for you, too.
It's an interesting thing because instead of painting out the mural, decided to keep this intrusion. It was from a random stranger trying to make their mark on the wall. It's like an Aikido move. Instead of using force to block it, why don't we integrate it and into our artwork, and create something new that includes them. And I think that's an interesting way that you approached your artwork. You've always said, well, what we do is about creating a voice for the people in the neighborhood. And I think that goes back to your philosophy of painting.
We do all these workshops, and not everybody has time to come and participate in them, but then they'll see us painting, and we'll add, something if we can, if they ask. Or sometimes they'll want to come and paint, and we'll say, oh, here's a brush, you can do this, and they can't believe that we're actually like letting them, and they shy away. Here, yeah, fill this in. Don't be afraid.
That is part of the process. I think it's an important part of the mural work that you do. I mean, there's a distinction between being a studio artist and being a community muralist. It's definitely not entirely artist-driven. It's by the people who are non-artists who are contributing the ideas and who are actually painting the mural and finishing the mural. The artist is there as a guide in a way, and to get the message or the voice of the community onto the wall.
I felt very comfortable with that, and that I felt that it was that I could share these skills and knowledge with other people. And it didn't mean that they needed to be painters or go through the same process that I did, but that they're giving that opportunity to be part of a creative process.
Precita Eyes has guided so many young people into discovering art for themselves, and so part of that is being a teacher. I think you're a really good teacher.
What we emphasize is collaboration.
Yeah.
And it's really just being respectful of each other's ideas and effort. And everybody has a different level of experience. You need to respect that. And we find a way so that everybody can see themselves in the design that comes out of it. So many people I've worked with that have been transformed by it. So that, of course, you don't know that when you're practicing, at the very beginning, but then you see the changes in people and how they evolve and what impact it's had when they can work together and create something together beautiful and different. Because by yourself, you're just yourself, but when you put yourself with a lot of other people, you're creating something that you never imagined, when you started. And that's what begins to change, that makes that transformation in the person, because then they start to see things around them in a different way.